Hi, everyone. Hi, Vicky. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So why don't we first do a little bit of an introduction? Vicky, tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about Unilever, because people might recognize the brands, but not necessarily Unilever.
Fantastic. Well, wonderful to be here. My name is Vicky Cuthbert. I'm the Chief Product Supply Chain Officer for Unilever Personal Care. Unilever has some brands that you all will probably know. Dove, Hellmann's. I'm also looking forward to the Super Bowl commercial this weekend. In total, we have over 400 brands, and our products are used by over 3 billion people every single day. We also operate in over 190 countries, and some of those we've been operating for over 100 years, in the likes of India, Indonesia, and Argentina. Our turnover in 2022 was over 60 billion euros. Tomorrow is actually our results announcement for 2023, so more to be revealed then. And we have an underlying sales growth of just under 10%. And just to give you an idea of the scale of our supply chain, when we serve over those 3 billion people every day, we have over 70,000 finished product SKUs, and we're making 20 million tons of product every year.
So a small operation.
Just a small operation. Yeah. Just a small operation.
Okay.
And we also have a very small number of over 200 Unilever factories, and we're also operating in over 900 contract manufacturing partners. And I think probably particularly relevant for this team, we're also serving 250,000 customers, and we have over 50,000 suppliers. And at any one moment in time, we have over 12,000 containers on 1,500 ships traveling all over the world. And every day, we have 18,000 trucks on the road just with our materials. So yeah, just a small operation.
Just a small operation, exactly. So that puts it into perspective a little bit, right? The complexity of the type of operation that you're working in. This is also supply chain to admire. You know, by many people, the standards that you guys set are pretty high. So we're here to talk about anti-fragility. Now, that's a term that's been brandished about quite a lot. Gartner's been talking about it. There are books that are being written about it. But I want to ask you what it means to you.
Thank you. It's a fantastic question. So I think by now we're all coming to terms with the fact that the amplitude and the frequency of volatility is increasing. I at least don't see every day something else happens somewhere, you can imagine, in such an enormous supply chain all around the world. And I think as an industry, we've done a lot of work on resilience. So making sure that, when something goes wrong, we can recover. But that's not really enough anymore. So really what we're trying to drive now is building these anti-fragile supply chains. Mm-hmm. And what that really means is moving to a mindset that things will go wrong. However, how can we be proactive and design for that volatility? And most importantly, how can we turn that into a competitive advantage? So really, really thinking very, very differently as to how we can benefit from the inevitable disruption and gain that competitive edge. So a very, very different mindset than we had before the pandemic. And in order to make that happen, there's 3 key areas of focus for us. So innovation, talent, and collaboration. So innovation, what I really mean is how can we actually, in a very smart way, recognize signals of what may be about to happen. For talent, it's about very new skill sets for our organization and different competencies and capabilities that we need. And in terms of collaboration, really building very different types of partnerships. And really the traditional lines of roles in a supply chain, we're seeing blurring. So the roles of suppliers, a company like Unilever, and partners that we're working with all the way up to our customers is very much changing.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there because a lot of organizations and maybe a lot of people here in the room are trying to deal with disruption, right? So one thing is dealing with disruption, and the other thing is actually creating an opportunity out of disruption. So let's set the stage. I mean, no, this is not newsflash to anybody. The last couple of years have been very difficult. They talk about black swan events. I think this has been like a flock of swans events. So there's just one thing after another. It's like what's on the bingo card today, right? So what has the impact been for you guys? I'll tell you why, because you're also going through quite a lot of transformations. So how do you keep a ship as big as Unilever on track through transformation and towards your mission, whilst dealing with all of this chaos?
Fantastic. So I think that is the question.
That is the question. What are the answers? Quickly.
That is the question. Yeah. I'm not quite sure of the term for a flock of black swans.
I think it's a flock of black swans.
But or a gaggle. That we can work on. But I think, of course, because of the nature of our global business, we have impacts from everything. So there's a combination of planet in distress, rapid digitalization, but of course all the geopolitical events that really impact us every day. I think the most important answer to your question is at the heart of things. The fundamental values of Unilever, have not changed.
Okay, that's important to keep your true north.
They endure, and that really becomes the source of strength and sustenance. As fundamentally Unilever is a purpose-led company,
right.
And our purpose is to make sustainable living commonplace.
Okay.
So I think what is incredibly powerful is that endures everything, whether that's the events around us, whether that's, as you mentioned, I think we'll talk more about in a moment, we change our organization.
Yeah.
Holding on to that common direction, I think, is very important. I think the other thing, and something I have a huge amount of passion about, and something we talked about when we spoke last year, and is actually a conversation we had with our Unilever CEO last week with our supply chain teams. Our moment now in supply chain is we are really the voices of reason and the guardians of reality. So now there was never a better moment than right now for us to really play an incredibly powerful role in our businesses on where are we and the best ways ahead. So I think that also for me is a great source of strength. And I think in terms of some of the other kind of practical learnings that have become really important is we really need to get much, much better at how we build, integration and visibility across the entire end-to-end value chain. So you can't proactively prepare if you don't know what's happening. So we've put a huge amount of additional focus into both our data and tech systems, but probably more importantly, key partnerships that blur these lines. So one particular example at the customer end, we've built an AI-driven no-touch sales forecast, which really gives us kind of near real-time connectivity of what's happening. And that, is a big step for the customer to release data and give trust into what's going on, but really gives win-wins for everyone. For the consumer, gives them much better access to product on the shelves. For the customer, is increasing their growth and the growth of the category. And obviously for us, then means we can integrate all the way back into our network, all the way back through our logistics, our factories, all the way back through to our suppliers. So I think really leaning in and taking risks into areas where previously we would have been more cautious has been very important.
And like you say, that visibility is going to be very important in terms of being able to create the anti-fragile supply chain. Okay, so yesterday I had a session on stage here with Elliot Rogers from Foot Locker, and we talked about transformation. So I want to talk to you about transformation as well, because there seems to be a misunderstanding with this whole shiny new object syndrome that you got to go after the latest toy, the latest technology. I believe that transformation really is about people. And I know that all of the things that you've been talking about are fantastic, but what has it all meant for your people agenda?
Yeah. So I think that for me is the most important thing. So, in my career so far, you can do nothing and you can make no transformation unless you can capture both the hearts and minds of the people. So in terms of, what we're seeing through what we're going through is the engagement and the culture of your organization is more important than ever before. Really helping, your teams ensure that they understand how what they're doing connects into the overall objective is super important. And again, I talked about blurring before, but we're also seeing, the line between traditional blue and white collar workers blurring. What it takes to run a production line in a factory or a warehouse is very, very different than it used to be. So it's been incredibly important for us to really invest in the skills and capability of our organization, but not just in the short-term transactional skills, but also those much more future-fit capabilities, whether that's in particular digital capabilities, but also, leadership and engagement skills are very important as well. So in Unilever, we have had a huge focus on learning and really dialed it up. So we launched kind of a new My Unilever app last year, which really makes sure that we can connect all of our frontline workers. We're driving a citizen data scientist program, so really, really building data scientist skills across our organization. And also, I mentioned it before, one of the key reasons that people join Unilever is because of the company purpose. So helping people understand how every day they are helping to contribute to that mission is very powerful. And I think the other thing that we have done, you mentioned it earlier, we've reorganized our entire
Well, I was just
company.
Ask you that question. I was just going to ask you that question. Now, to put it in perspective, I go to a lot of events. I speak at a lot of events. I've got a podcast, shameless plug here, over 200 episodes. But I interview a lot of people, and I always get asked, what is a supply chain to admire? And I always use your example, the supply chain at Unilever. And I'll tell you why, because a couple of years ago, I think it was, you completely shifted from having supply chain departments, supply chain divisions that no longer exist. They're now business operations. And why do I love that? Because I love the fact that you have understood the assignment, as it were, and realized that supply chain is the business. Supply chain is the business operation. So tell us a little bit about that. Why did it come about? How?
Sure. So it's 2 years ago now. That I can't quite believe that. So yes. So in the summer of 2022, Unilever, an enormous company, underwent one of the biggest transformations in its history. So moved to a structure essentially of 5 end-to-end business groups. Of beauty and well-being, personal care, nutrition, ice cream, and home care, ranging in all
Sorry to
quite
interrupt
big.
you. Ice cream has its own category.
Ice cream has its own category.
Good, okay.
Yes,
As it should.
As it should. If for ice cream lovers, there's a lot to love. And each of those business groups has end-to-end P&L accountability, and they're all quite big. Yeah. So ice cream is the smallest, about 8 billion. Personal care and nutrition are even bigger at 14 billion. Mm-hmm. So 5 end-to-end business groups that really run the business. And those 5 business groups are supported by a lean corporate center and business operations that Maria referenced. So in doing that, we really brought together in business operations is the operational backbone of Unilever, which brings together both the classical supply chain expertise, but also together with all of the technology and enterprise services that really drive how our business operates and is experienced by our customers and consumers every day. And within business operations, we have customer operations, which is planning, logistics, customer experience. We have procurement. We have all of our global IT operations that run everything, whether that's the turnstile entry to the office, all the way through to the digital AI solutions with a customer. And also all of our central supply chain capabilities, safety, quality, etc. And really, we're incredible to say, nearly 2 years into the journey now, it has been absolutely, transformational.
Yeah.
The opportunities that are unlocked by bringing together supply chain and IT, as some would have said,
Yeah.
in terms of it dialing it up. But more importantly, we are now at the heart of the business.
Yeah.
So, for example, my role, I lead the end-to-end supply chain for our 14 billion euro personal care business.
Yeah.
And I am now, absolutely able to, first of all, understand what the business needs, and then make sure that I can translate that into how we deliver that in our area.
And this goes back to something you said a little while ago with regards to cross-functional collaboration, collaboration being one of the pillars that you're working towards. How important was this step in bringing so many people together to drive the business value?
So I would say absolutely essential, not easy to do.
No.
So I have the benefit of having worked in other companies, so I have experienced different setups, but for many people in Unilever, they've been in the same way of working for 20 or 30 years,
Yeah.
and used to, how things work. So I think you mentioned it earlier, to drive a transformation, it's all about the culture.
Yeah.
So you can you can make a fantastic organization design on paper.
Yeah.
You can work on it in theory. But the actual really with the teams making that work and driving and building that new culture and way of working as one team to help the business win has been very, very important.
And I think the fact that you are to me, the star that we should all aim for in terms of the type of supply chain, no pressure or anything like that. But I think the fact that you have highlighted that this is such an integral part of the business function. One of the things we talk about is that during the pandemic, the supply chain function, all of you guys in the room, rose to the occasion to keep this world moving. And so we've had conversations about having supply chain as part of the table, right? The board table, the senior decision-making table. So how do we stay there? How do we stay in those positions?
So this, I think, is really, really important. And I think we all need to be a bit brave, okay? And I think we all need to take the advantage of the difficult situation that we've just been in. Shine. Exactly. So many of our business partners probably never thought about these things until we've gone through all of these challenges and realized how important it is. But I think there's probably two things I think that are important. So I think one is really being brave and speaking up in a business team when you think maybe that's not the best idea, there's a better way of doing it. This really putting the facts on the table. And I think the other thing for all of us is we need to invest in our own business acumen. So it starts for me with really understanding, what it takes to run the business, and then we can be much better partners. But I think just stepping into the space that the last 3 years has created is the first. But I think I controversially don't actually think of myself as a supply chain leader. I like to think of myself as a business leader. But you need to lean into that.
I think it's good, great advice. Okay, so here's another question. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. It's not lost on us that here are two women in supply chain talking about supply chain. There are a lot of women in supply chain here, so well done for being in supply chain. I remember many, many years ago being, and I'm sure you do too, one of the only women in the room in conferences. So what advice would you give to your younger self starting out in a supply chain function that could hopefully resonate with the women in this room?
Thank you. So yes, it has come a long way. It has come a long way. So I think probably a couple of things that I would definitely tell my younger self maybe resonate with some of you. So, for most of the early parts of my career, I was very much surrounded by, male supply chain leaders, some with particularly strong styles. And, in my early days, I received quite a lot of advice to change my leadership style, to be more like them, to lead in a very different way. And that was really, really difficult. I felt a huge amount of pressure to change, to be like them. Now, whenever I tried to do that a little bit, it just felt so horrible. I stopped.
Yeah.
But I think the advice I would say to myself is to hold true to leading and doing things your way, okay? You need to learn, what is it inside you that gives you your energy and gives you your motivation, and feed that. You will not be successful if you try and lead in a way or a style. One extreme example in my younger days was I was, told by a particularly direct, slightly irrational boss, that I just needed to shout at people a lot more. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
So I think really holding true to, learning what it is that's important to you and drives you, and holding true to that. And if anyone puts undue pressure on you to change, that's not okay, I think would probably be the main thing. The second thing that's been very important to me as I've progressed is the concept of energy. So I passionately believe that we're more successful when we're doing things that we enjoy and we're getting a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So as I've got older, I've learned more about, what do I love doing and gives me energy, and what do I hate doing and takes away my energy, and doing something about it. So actually each Friday afternoon, I reflect on the week before.
Yeah.
And I think about, what did I love, what did I not love, and then I do something to change it. So I think that understanding what it is that you personally drives and motivates you, and keep feeding that, would be the second one.
Powerful. Now I'm going to shift gears to the last question, which is about the future. What do you think the future holds for the supply chain profession, and what does the future look like for you?
So I think I guess the first thing to say is I don't think any of us know exactly what the future's going to look like, but I think we need to embrace that.
Yes.
I think we need to embrace that and enjoy that and lean into it. So I think I genuinely think that anti-fragility as we go forward will be a competitive edge. And within that really encompass, how do you really build the right skills and talents in your team? How do you build the right connections and partnerships in the entire ecosystem? And I think, the people, is going to continue to be the secret sauce, but in a very different way than before.
I would agree with you. And what about in terms of the kind of things that excite you with regards to technology? There's a lot of technology out there. I know I said people is the heart of it, but we kind of need the technology too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, there's so much out there. It can be slightly overwhelming at times, all of these different opportunities and tools. So I think the thing that excites me most, is as the boundaries of tech keep going forwards, whether that's, as AI and other things progress, for me, the magic is going to come when we really, really, really connect the really clear, specific business problem with the technology. So I think there's a very real risk we get excited by all the technology and spend a lot of effort doing stuff.
And not solving a real problem.
And not solving the real problem and losing it. But I think the really exciting thing, and where only we can do it, is we are the connectors and the translators between the business and the technology. So what is the real competitive advantage business problem connected with the technology that we have, and that's where the magic will and is happening.
And if you can marry all of that with the people, right, the customer at its center, but the people, the technology, and actually improve your processes as well, you hopefully can get the winning sauce. Last thoughts on the anti-fragile leader. What kind of traits do you think we need to have?
So I think it's a very good point, because I think it challenges a lot of our historical some of our know-how, and also I think our mindset. So I think the anti-fragile leader needs to lean into the unknown. Needs to embrace the risk as a challenge. So the classical, I'm going to make sure from 360 days I have everything covered and dotted, and being slightly on the more cautious side, I see less of. So I think there's some more some bravery, some risk-taking,
Some unlearning.
some
That's-
unlearning, and being very humble on what we don't know.
I think that's very important. Thank you so much, Vicky, for being here. Thank you very much for letting us talk to you. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.